I am Karen Dewar. I'm the Executive Director of ULI Minnesota, and it is my complete pleasure to welcome you here. I worked just across the street 10 years ago. I can see my parking space from here. And I gotta tell you, Mayor and Commissioner, things are looking a little different around here. It was a real wow coming up here and seeing those tracks and this depot. And our program today is going to be a wow as well. We have a fantastic lineup of both public leaders and private investors. And my job, I hate standing at podiums, my job is just to make a few quick announcements. First of all, if you don't know about ULI, please visit our website. There's lots of materials over there. You can find out anything you'd like to know, and if you want to talk to somebody, come and talk to me or Katie Anderson after the program. I want to thank our sponsors. I want to thank the folks who helped make this project, this program work today. We had a great program committee, and our program partners, which are the City of St. Paul, Greater MSP, Ramsey County, and the St. Paul Riverfront Corporation. I want to give you a heads up about another program that's coming up on November 7th, which is our annual Economic Trends Conference with Brian Bolio. If you come to that, you're going to find out what to expect for the economy in the next 2 to 3 years. He is great. Those of you who have heard him, you know he's great. If you haven't come, I really encourage you to come. You'll have a real treat. And those of you who care about things like continuing education, please go to the table after the program and you can either get your certificate or sign up so that your credits can come your way. We are on Twitter, so if you would like to tweet, our hashtag is #ULI Minnesota, and we think that that's just fine if you want to do that during the program. So it is my honor to start the program by introducing Commissioner McDonough. He is a champion of all things regional and infrastructure and an eternal optimist, right? All right.
Absolutely. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Union Depot. Isn't this a fantastic building? If you were in here 2.5 years ago, it would look a lot different than what it looks like now. So for those of you that had seen it before and what it is now, the transformation has just been absolutely amazing. But past that, those doors over there, that's where the real transformation has occurred. That no one was back there except for one event, the Titanic event was back there. At one time, 1973, the last usage by the railroads in that part closed, and it has been sitting empty since 1973. And we're ready just about to pull down that banner and bring life back to the complete Union Depot project. In the early part of the 20th century, actually for most of the first half of the 20th century, the Union Depot here, the St. Paul Union Depot, was really the transit hub for this community. This is where people came and where they went and how they left this community, but it was more than that. It was the economic engine for this part of the city and for a long time for the city. But then it was also known as St. Paul's living room. This is where people gathered. This is where people shared their experiences. This is where people came to celebrate community events. In 2000, Ramsey County started to move forward on recognizing that we had a need as we move forward on Central Corridor, as we move forward on Red Rock, Rush Line, Gateway, Robert Street, Riverview corridors, all these transit corridors, and recognizing that they were vital to the future of our city and our region, that we needed to take a look at, how do we bring all those lines together? And we came to the conclusion that we had this gem sitting right here in our own community, that we needed to work towards finding a way to bring this back to life. And we're really, really close to that. It's one of those projects that's been an absolute joy to work on. We've had many, many partners that have been a part of helping make this success. I was talking to somebody earlier, and I've worked on so many issues as a county commissioner, and people are always very they like to share their opinions all the time, and most of the projects that we work on, there's a, kind of, some of them can be polarizing, and we can get a lot of feedback in different ways. And I never got one negative email. I never got one negative phone call. I never had one negative response about the investment that we're putting into this project right here. The community has seen that vision. They're excited, and we're proud to be a part of bringing that forward. Talk a little bit about a few comments here before we move on, and I get to introduce Mayor Coleman here. But you know, as a county commissioner and a public servant, I have to make decisions about taxpayer dollars all the time. And there's always going to be a discussion about what's government's role, what's the best use of taxpayer dollars. But my experience, as I've looked across the country, as what we've experienced in our own metropolitan area, cities and counties and metropolitan areas that invest in infrastructure really are those benefits that most people will say is a role of government. Those investments, they create long-term stability. They send a strong message to private capital, to business owners, to developers, that there's stability in this community, that people believe in this community. They send a strong message that we want your investment here. We want to grow with you. We want you to succeed in our community. When public makes these types of investments like this, Central Corridor, the types of public infrastructure investments that help people, move goods, that really help a community survive and thrive. And so Ramsey County, that was a big deal because we've got $66 million of Ramsey County money into this project. And those are tough votes for us as elected officials, but never once did we have anything but a 7-0 vote on this project because of the confidence in the Ramsey County Board that this investment in public infrastructure will help do exactly what the original investment when James J. Hill made this investment, is stimulate that economic development, provide confidence to the community that we're here, we believe in this community, and we're going to invest in this community. 4 years ago, I brought the Capital Investment Committee down here, we did, because we were looking for some state help in being a partner here. And 4 years ago, when you looked out those doors, there was for sale, for lease plastered all over that building, all three sides of it. There's not one single sign on that. Later today, you'll hear from the founder of CoCo, who's actually in that building, and the success of that building. If you look to the east, when you leave or when you came, that's an empty parking lot. There's a sign out there right now, for sale, 65 apartments. TPT, Public Television's our neighbor right to the west. They're in a current capital campaign for $20 million investment, a lot to help improve their operations. But a lot of it is really focused in on how they're integrated into the Union Depot, into Central Corridor, how they're integrated into Lower Town to make sure that that building fits. The post office has been for sale for a long time, and really that bobber's just been sitting there, but there's been some nibbles. There's been some nibbles on that. That's a huge potential sitting right there. So, you know, we're seeing the advantages of this investment already. I've been working with Chris Coleman for almost 12 years now. I first got to know him when he was a city council member, in the last 6 years as our mayor. As mayor of St. Paul, Chris has brought vision. He always sees the bright future for St. Paul. He has followed that up with leadership. When there are naysayers, when others want to give up, Chris continues to move forward. He makes it happen. You're going to hear about some of those projects that Chris has been instrumental in making happen in St. Paul. Most of all, Chris brings passion, a love for the city of St. Paul. You can't have a strong city without having a mayor that has that love and that passion, and we're fortunate that we have a mayor that has that love and passion for his city. He's always working to provide a desirable quality of life for the people who live here, to provide an environment for businesses to succeed, to grow, ensuring workers share in that success. I don't. I don't want to miss any of it, not one word, Chris. Working with many partners to provide a memorable experience for people who come to recreate, come to St. Paul for their entertainment opportunities. That passion is also seen in the importance Chris puts on education in our community for all. Chris has done a tremendous amount for the city, and it's my honor to introduce Chris Coleman, the mayor, City of St. Paul.
Thanks, Jim. You know, Jim, I gave you that script almost a year ago, and I would have expected that you by now would have that committed to memory. Don't turn the page. That's the story of my life, I think. First of all, you know, for those of you from the West Metro and beyond, or maybe even from outside the Twin Cities community, this is the other commissioner whose name begins with a Mick that is committed to transportation, committed to a broad vision for the future of our community. McLaughlin is doing a hell of a job over in Hennepin County, but thank God Ramsey County has McDonough, and he's doing a great job for this vision here that we have. If it wasn't for Jim, it wouldn't have happened. I'm sure there's a German or a Swede out there doing something somewhere, but I haven't met him yet. I just want to say, first of all, for all of you designers and planners and architects and the folks that are kind of trying to create a great vision for our community, on the way down here I grabbed the art section of the New York Times today. I say that kind of to show you what an intellectual I am, that I just happened to grab the art section of the New York Times. And I would share this with you, I would pass this around, but there's an article on Lewis Black that I want to read a little bit later. But the headline of the section is "Design as a Balm for a Community's Soul." And it's this great story about this low-income housing project in Oakland and how they took this dilapidated neighborhood, a crime-infested neighborhood, and they put a little extra love and a little extra care and a little extra design into the neighborhood, and they got what they call the multiplier of good design. And when we think about what we do here, there's a lot of pressure on us just to get something done. There's a lot of pressure on us to build housing. There's a lot of pressure on us to build light rail lines. There's a lot of pressure on us to build even, you know, new regional ballparks or Viking stadiums or whatever. But the fact is, when we get pressured, we should respond to that, but we should also never forget that the decisions that we make as we build our community, as we rebuild our communities, are decisions that are around for 100 years or 200 years or beyond. Design does matter. Design has a multiplier effect. And when we do things like make creative and livable spaces for low-income folks, then we can change lives for people. We can change destinies of communities, and those things are important. So never forget the work that you do. Never forget that it's important. Think about, had a group, you know, somebody was asking me at a speech I gave yesterday out in Wayzata, they were saying, you know, is there any way that you could connect the capital area to what's happening in downtown? Because I go to Madison and I see these wonderful things. And I said, you know, the great thing about Madison is you have the campus, you have the downtown area, you have the Capitol, all kind of connected. Unfortunately, somebody 60 years ago or so decided that the place that we should run a freeway is in between the state capitol and the downtown area, that permanently, unless you follow kind of a grand design that some people had to bridge the freeway, you know, for several blocks, you really have permanently kind of separated things that could be otherwise connected and have a multiplier effect had you done that right in the first place. So always think about what we do, and I think that's one of the great things that we're doing as we rebuild the Central Corridor, as we build the light rail line, and as we think about reuses and adaptive reuses of great spaces like this, is that we understand we're making 100-year decisions, if not even longer than that. It's been great to be able to work with all of you as we've kind of done some of those things. And I think in St. Paul we have an ethos that design matters. We have an ethos that community input matters. And I think as a result of that, even though sometimes the process gets a little messy, it is a better design, it is a better result at the end of it. Jim mentioned the Titanic exhibit that was back here, it was like 99 or something, like 98 or 99. You remember, I don't know how many of you saw that or got to, this was like one of the original displays of the artifacts that had been brought up from the Titanic after they found it. And you may remember that on a Saturday afternoon, it was kind of I think it was an early day in early weekend in May or sometime in the spring, beautiful sunny day. They were going to blow the whistle. The first time that the steam whistle from the Titanic had been blown since that fateful day that ship went down. And so literally thousands of people gathered into downtown St. Paul, some coming for the very first time or people that hadn't been here for years. And they crowded into this square here and they were kind of gathered, and people came to the bluffs because this thing was going to be so earth-shattering loud that a lot of people were afraid that their hearing would be ruined if they came too close to it. So some gathered on the west side up on the bluffs, and some gathered up by the cathedral, some gathered over on the east side, and we all waited. And at about 1 o'clock, the whistle blew. And unless you were like about 5 feet away from it, you said, was that it? Is that all that we heard? And literally, I was up on the west side, and we were listening to WCCO, and then they went back to their regular programming, and we said, well, it must be over. I didn't hear anything. Well, the analogy that I draw here is that for years, there were a lot of people in St. Paul trying to blow the horn, but there weren't a whole lot of people that were listening to it. There weren't a lot of people that heard it. And if you were outside the immediate downtown area, if you were out in the West Metro area, you didn't understand that there was a whole lot of things that were happening in downtown St. Paul that gave us cause to be celebrating, that gave us cause to have our horns being tooted. But it still is one of those things that you have to you have to change perception. You have to get people to understand that things are different. And I hear it every day. It's to the point now where I get a little crazy. It's kind of like when that Laurel and Hardy movie, Saps at Seas, when he hears a horn. When someone tells me that, gee, Mayor, downtown St. Paul is dead, I get a little nuts about that. Because I'll ask the folks, when was the last time you were in downtown St. Paul? And inevitably they'll have said, it was 10 years ago. That was the last time I was down there. And I said, well, if you haven't been in downtown St. Paul for 10 years, then you really don't know downtown St. Paul. Or if you've only been to the Excel or to the Ordway, even though those things are incredibly wonderful places and there's some wonderful anchoring events that occur at those places, but you haven't been into Lower Town, you haven't been to the Jazz Festival, you haven't been to the new bars and restaurants that are happening here, you haven't come into this space to see the amazing transformation of it, or you haven't seen the shaping of the light rail line that's occurring and all the things that are occurring outside of it, then you just don't know downtown St. Paul. And it's a really, in some ways, when I get to tell that story, it's really kind of fun. I get a little frustrated having to tell that story, but at the end of the day, people are beginning to understand. Karen mentioned that she, having worked here for years, but coming back here and seeing it from a different perspective, she sees that downtown St. Paul is very different. I got an email the other day from a woman who many of you would know, but I won't name her name. But she said that they had their daughter's wedding in downtown St. Paul. And so there were people really from across the globe or across the country that were coming here, particularly a big group of people from New York and from other places on the East Coast. And they were so amazed by this place that they discovered. They loved every aspect of it, from the St. Paul Hotel to the restaurants that they went to the fact that they could get on a bike share bike and ride it along the riverfront. And these folks from New York said, this has got to be the greatest destination environment for a wedding in the entire United States of America. Now, I'm not sure that that's going to be my economic development strategy, is to become, the Vegas of the Midwest. But the fact of the matter is, they found out what we know, is that when you come down to downtown St. Paul and you see what we're doing down here, it's truly amazing. And there are a lot of folks that kind of were in at the beginning of that vision that have really started to see that. Whether it's the folks that started CoCo or Rich Packinen, who's been doing some great work here for many years, Bill Morrissey over at the St. Paul Hotel, who then opened up Pazza Luna, or it's the Hope of Hoboken, Lenny Russo, who brought Heartland from a very successful location on the corner of Fairview and St. Clair into downtown St. Paul, and has opened up, I think, one of the most unique restaurants, if not in the country, certainly in the Midwest. So the fact of the matter is, there are people that could see through the construction, that could see through the need for new wallpaper or new carpet, and understand what's happening here. When you look at a downtown and how you rebuild it, there are kind of 4 pieces that you have to, I think, have in place in order to make a downtown successful. First of all, you have to have great open spaces and kind of just that great sense, that great feel. I always hate that phrase, sense of place, but that's in fact exactly what it is. When you walk into a place, you have to kind of go, yeah, this is different than a suburban shopping mall. This is different than every place I could go to in the country and see very similar things. Chain restaurants or chain stores or chain hotels or any of those things. What you see in downtown St. Paul is really unique. And you don't necessarily see it on, from afar on the skyline level. I love the skyline view of downtown St. Paul, but it doesn't compare to what you feel when you walk into Rice Park. it doesn't begin you don't really sense that until you come into Mears Park, which is one of the most beautiful, one of the best. Our designer of Mears Park just won a national award, right, for his work and was recognized as one of the best urban park designers because what he created there was a really unique space. That allows us to bring people in for Concrete and Grass and for the Jazz Festival. And I will say this also because it will sound like bragging, and it's exactly what I mean it to be. But I was with Delfio Marsalis after he played in Mears Park this last summer. And we went from Mears Park over to the Artist Quarter. And as we were sitting there a little bit later on, he played a couple sets, and he just said, Mayor, this is like one of the greatest places. This is just a fantastic place. I play all over the world. And that what you've got going in that park there is really special. It's really unique. That's affirming for us. We're Minnesotans. We need other people to tell us that we're doing good things. But it does matter in that commitment to the public spaces. Whether it's the small parks like Mears and Rice, we're going to redevelop what would be Pedro's lot across from the new Byerly's store in the Penfield, or it's the larger parks like the entire riverfront, or the Vento Nature Sanctuary, or all of that open and green space that surrounds downtown. Those things become incredibly important to set the stage for the other things that you need. You also need housing. Housing is critically important. We were down well under 5,000 units of housing in the 90s. It was a commitment that the former Mayor Coleman made to take those old surface parking lots in the Northeast Quadrant and turn them into something different, to turn them into places where people could live, to turn them into communities, and we set forth to do that. It wasn't easy because, quite frankly, the surface parking lots were making a lot of money, but we knew that wasn't the right vision for the downtown area. We knew that unless we did something differently, the other pieces that we wanted to come wouldn't happen, and so we set about creating another community, adding additional housing. Right now we have 7,000 units of housing in downtown St. Paul. Between the Penfield, the Farmers Market lofts, and some other projects, we'll have added well over 600 units of housing in just the last couple of years. In addition to a lot of it being workforce housing and affordable housing, the Penfield will be a market rate housing that will bring in people with a lot of disposable income. They'll be attracted by the fact that not only can they work downtown, catch the light rail line to any one of the number of amenities or work spots along the corridor, but they'll also be able to shop at the Lund's grocery store, the Byerly's grocery store that will open up there next year. They'll be able to walk down to the new regional ballpark to catch a game, and they'll be able to walk to some of the new bars and restaurants. So that housing piece kind of plays off of the work that we've done. It fuels future work that we're going to do. It all gets built in the environment that we've created through the parks and the open spaces. We also know that downtown just can't be a residential community. It has to be a destination for work. It has to be it has to house businesses. It has to house, great corporations, whether they're old, incredibly successful corporations like Travelers or Ecolab or Securian. But it also has to be the new innovators, the new entrepreneurs that are going into CoCo, that are going into some of the new creative spaces. We know that we create a setting for that. But we also know that employees are choosing where to live first and then choosing where they want to work. I hear that over and over again. Employees are looking for places that they want to live, and then they look for a job based on that. So when we create these great open spaces, we create housing opportunities, we create people that want to come down here, and they ultimately want to work down here. It's one of the stories I'm really proud of that over the last couple of months when I was at the University of Minnesota Law School, it was quite frankly just an excuse to load up people and take them over to the Stroh's Brewery. In the old days when you could go to the tasting room for free, and we were poor law students, we needed any excuse that we could have. But I did this whirlwind tour of the Twin Cities. And at the time, I'd take them to Mary Tyler Moore's house, I'd take them over to Minnehaha Falls, and that was kind of it for Minneapolis. And then we'd spend the rest of the afternoon. I said, they'll figure out Minneapolis. They're going to be there all day long, 24/7. But what they won't see is St. Paul unless we kind of open their eyes to them. So, we take them down past the colleges and universities. We take them down past the governor's mansion, where F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote his first novel. Take them downtown, over to Sweet Hollow, the Capitol, the Cathedral, all of those places, before we ended up at the Stroh's Brewery. But the other day, or a couple months ago, I ran into a young woman, and I said, so what do you do? And she said, I'm a student at the University of Minnesota Law School. And I said, well, where do you work, or where do you live? And she said, I live in Mears Park. And I said, really? that's interesting because, kind of told her the story. And she said, you have to understand, all of my friends at law school want to live in downtown St. Paul. This is the spot that we want to be. This is the cool place that my classmates want to go to, because they see all of the things that we're doing. They see the Amsterdam, they see Station 4, they see just the great spaces and the outdoor concerts, et cetera, et cetera. And the fact that that perception is changing among 20-somethings, people that are in law school or medical school or any engineering school, whatever it might be, tells us that we're on the right track in terms of creating that place where people want to live. That will then create a workforce for the companies that are looking for a young and creative talent, and hopefully, I think, really kind of push additional growth and additional generation. So again, all of those pieces link to each other. At the end of the day, that soul of the city, that kind of creative juice that flows through the city, has been just an incredibly important part of our vision. When I was first mayor and we all sat down with the department directors and we kind of mapped out the strategic plan, and we went through priorities on public safety and on education, on technology, on budgeting, and all of those things, we had 5 items. But you looked at that board and you knew that there was something missing. You could see that there just wasn't, that's all great, that's all wonderful, that's all really wonky and really boring. And I said, we need something else. And they said, well, what is that? And I realized at that point it was great being mayor because people actually cared what you had to say. Previously they never would. They said, yeah, we're fine, we're good. But they said, what are you thinking? I said, well, it's Jimmy the Greek used to have, when he kind of handicapped a football game, he'd go through the offensive lines, the defensive lines, the quarterbacks, the running backs, et cetera, et cetera. But then he would have this thing, the intangibles. He would have, what's the it that's going to make the difference in a game? And I said, the it for downtown St. Paul, the it for St. Paul generally, has to be the soul of the city. It has to be the arts. It has to be the music. It has to be the pulse that is created on the nights that there's music in Mears Park. It has to be the incredible events that happen at the Ordway and how we can capture that and actually help grow that out into the street, where it has in fact grown out into the street on Thursday nights during the summer. Come into Rice Park and see hundreds, if not thousands, of people dancing to jazz or to samba or to any number of things. It's this crazy little thing that has kind of poured out into the streets from the Ordway, but created this cool little destination environment. Because we've worked on that, I think that we really have kind of changed the perception of downtown St. Paul, particularly among those 20-somethings. You put all of those pieces together, great spaces, great places, great housing with the amenities to support housing, like a new grocery store. You create places for people to work, and you create great reasons for people to come down to. You create a great city. Now, I wish I could say that all of these were original ideas to mine. They're not. I stole every single one of them from somebody. The music scene, the art scene, came directly from seeing what was happening in Austin, Texas. Because I looked at Austin, Texas, and I said, there's no reason why Austin, Texas, and how everybody talks about that place, shouldn't be exactly how people talk about downtown St. Paul, as 6th Street versus Mears Park. We have a university. We have great businesses. We have the state capitol and the government sector. We have the pieces that make Austin alive. What was missing was that soul, that jazz, that funky part of it. So that was one of the, again, an idea that I stole, but I stole every single piece of it. But what's nice about it is that's what we get to do. We get to take the best ideas, we get to meld them together, we get to direct staff to work on them, we get to rally the community around those ideas, and we get to transform places. If you don't know what St. Paul was like 15 or 20 years ago, you may not fully understand how transformed this place is going to be. And if you don't fully understand how rapidly this has occurred, even before light rail line begins to roll into downtown St. Paul, even before the Saints throw out the first pitch of a new stadium in a couple of years, you don't quite understand how fast and how far downtown St. Paul, and then by extension the rest of St. Paul, is going to grow. We're on the right track. We're moving. It's going to go fast. Hold on. It's going to be a bumpy ride, but it's going to be a good one. Thank you. It's my pleasure now to introduce a great piece of that will help us bring some of those great companies into St. Paul. Michael Langley, as the head of Greater MSP, has really been an amazing driver of the new organization that has helped us coordinate throughout the Twin Cities, brought the best leaders of business into the community, the best thinkers, the best talent, and I think is getting us back on a map that we didn't used to be on. We were used to be on it decades ago, but for the last couple of decades haven't been on, and that is just telling the story of downtown St. Paul, downtown Minneapolis, of this entire metropolitan region to the rest of the world so they understand how special this place is. It's his job to sell us. Michael, take it away.
Thanks, Mayor. What an inspiration. I would say, you know, of all the leaders in this region, and Chris sits on the board and the executive committee of Greater MSP, and I can tell you seeing Chris operate in that environment of our civic leaders, our business leaders, our government leaders, our institutional leaders, City of St. Paul could have no better representative, not only in our region, but nationally and around the world. So, Mayor, again, congratulations to your vision and your leadership. It's so exciting to see the evolution of downtown St. Paul. You know, I'm an economic developer. I'm a little crazy. I love Jersey barriers. I love torn up streets. And most of all, I love cranes, because these are indicators that there's a vibrancy, there's a new day ahead. And for those of us that live and work in the St. Paul area, and my office is about 3 or 4 blocks from here, every day in St. Paul, we know what it's been like with the construction, with the great changes and these great new renovations and adaptive uses that we're seeing. So there could be no better example of an economic developer being happy than to see what's happening here over the last few years, and certainly we anticipate even more in future years. I'm also a regional thinker, as the mayor said. The responsibility of Greater MSP and my responsibility there is to look at our entire economic region. Because in the global marketplace today, we are seeing a critical shift in economic power. Regions are starting to dominate the business mindset more than their traditional boundaries of individual cities or even states. Consumers and workers and goods and services we know are more mobile today than ever. It's technology and productivity that allows us to span space and time more efficiently. So economies aren't created within the confines of a individual city or state boundary, but within the regional framework. And so in order for those cities and our regions to be successful, we need to be organized for success in a regional sense. Urban cores and suburban rings and ex-urban landscapes need to be integrated and collaborative to drive economic growth. So this means having these regional and collaborative structures and connections in place. Alignment behind priorities, and we need to have an understanding and support for the core assets of the region. So it's especially important to have the strong downtowns, the strong central business districts, because without that core, which I call the heart of the region, the entire region will not thrive and be as successful as it could be. What's exciting about our region is we have multiple cores, more than one central business district, and with the completion of the green LRT line, our urban core is going to be even more vibrant and a more competitive force for the future of our entire region. And of course, St. Paul is one of the key drivers of this entire region's heart and soul. Organizing for success also means aligning our private sector, our public sector, and our institutional leaders behind initiatives and, more importantly, actions in order to drive regional prosperity. Specifically, that means focusing on what I call the common denominators of regional excellence. That the region's brand and image, how we talk about ourselves nationally and globally, not just locally, our education and workforce and how that fits together. Thirdly, a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship is absolutely critical for our common denominators. Continually improving infrastructure, that's a common denominator for regional success. And then finally, an inclusive and diverse, welcoming community. Those are I believe, are our 5 core elements of regional success, which all regions around the world should strive to continually improve. So, a couple of thoughts about each one of those as it relates to St. Paul. Honing our brand and image of this place is absolutely critical. The community's positive identity that focuses on uniqueness and authenticity, pretty much to the mayor's comments. It's grounded in our core assets, our community's assets, and it has to be understood by our residents and promoted by us to non-residents. To a certain degree, we're all playing a game of attraction in some way or another today. We're trying to attract visitors, tourists, workers, and businesses. So it's our brand image and our brand experience. What we actually experience when people come and visit our city is what attracts them for the long term and makes them want to stay and make roots there, to make investments there. Because people want to be where the energy is high, where interesting opportunities and multiple opportunities abound, and where the prospects for growth are plentiful. St. Paul has a great brand aspiration, the most livable city in America. Well, it must be working because BusinessWeek.com recently ranked St. Paul as the number 10 top city in the country in terms of most livable. And last year, it was my honor actually to be in Washington, D.C. to accept an award on behalf of the mayor from Foreign Direct Investment magazine as one of America's most business-friendly cities. So that's our brand and image thinking. That education and workforce piece. This means that we must demand excellence in education of our youth and also demand lifelong learning opportunities for all of our residents. The first question I get whenever we're talking to business decision makers or corporate real estate executives or site location consultants when they're looking to expand or relocate to our region is, do we have the right workforce now? And is there a sufficient pipeline of workers in the future for that company with the right skills? We know that within 10 years from now that over 70% of all jobs in our region will need some degree of post-secondary education, some type of advanced education beyond high school. St. Paul is working to meet that challenge with one of the highest concentrations of college students in the country and strong elementary and secondary schools. And over the past few years, right here in St. Paul, we've seen an increase in graduation rates for students of all races, which makes it an even more attractive place for business growth. Thirdly, a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship is what fuels the community's vitality for the future. It's through positive change and in innovation and productivity increases that will help us achieve economic success and a higher quality of life. And it's innovation and entrepreneurship that drives that. From an economic development perspective, the ability to foster new product development and new businesses is obvious. Business is evolving at such a rapid pace that businesses need to keep up with productivity enhancements. And St. Paul has always had a heritage of innovation in its roots. 3M, Ecolab, Cray, 3 Deep Marketing, Gov Delivery, Infor Lawson are just a few examples of innovative companies here. And as already been mentioned, CoCo across the street is creating that collaborative and co-work space where entrepreneurs can work in small groups or individually to bring new ideas and new opportunities and new companies to life. It's that hive of energy in St. Paul that will drive its innovation for the future. Next, the fourth one, sound infrastructure, is important. It's an important investment for any community, especially one like St. Paul. It's physical, social, and cultural infrastructure needed to maintain and improve the community. And as I said earlier, consumers are more mobile than ever. Standing here in this great facility with the green line outside, you can see the kind of commitment and leadership that it's taken to bring us to this point where we actually have this future of infrastructure for the city, this county, and our region. Finally, creating a welcoming environment for diverse populations is absolutely critical to the future of the city and our region. We're really concerned that we are going to have a shortage of qualified workers in the near future, and we're going to need immigration and diverse communities joining us to fill the jobs to continue to fuel our company's growth. But they're going to require some degree of education and higher education, so we need to have immigrants and populations join us that either have the skills or help them in ways to acquire those skills quickly in order to contribute to the productivity that we're going to need. So this diversity, of course, brings new ideas and perspectives to fuel continued innovation. The workers bringing their families will be attracted to our vibrant downtowns and central business districts to add even more vitality to our community. From Little Mekong to District del Sol, St. Paul is a diverse and thriving city. Over 100 languages spoken in St. Paul district schools, which is a testimony to the welcoming nature of the city as part of our region. So, brand, education, innovation and entrepreneurship, infrastructure, and diversity. These are the 5 areas that successful communities like St. Paul must examine constantly and work to improve constantly. As you see, these factors are interconnected and require continuous energy and improvement by leadership and participants in our economy. Continuous improvement is something we all have to think about a great deal as we move our communities forward. We need to constantly improve because our citizens, our workers, and our businesses are going to demand it. The City of St. Paul understands this and has done a great job of prioritizing projects and opportunities, and then most importantly, working together to bring them to completion. I personally can't wait to see what the next chapter in the City of St. Paul brings. My guess is that it will be an exciting one, certainly one that I want to be a part of, and I know all you will want to be a part of as well. So thank you for letting me give you a little bit of a perspective on how important we are to the region. Thank you. So, with that, I hope you enjoy the panel discussion. So here to moderate it is Matt Kramer, President of the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce. I want to say our region's oldest and largest local chambers. And of course, you know, prior to joining the chamber, Matt served as Governor Tim Pelini's Chief of Staff and Commissioner of the Department of Employment and Economic Development. Matt also serves on Greater MSP's Partner Council. Matt, take it away. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, and Michael, thank you. You took away what I was going to say, oldest, largest. I would also note that several months ago, Minnesota Business Magazine said we were the best place to work, nonprofit category in North America. It may have been Minnesota, but I extended it to North America. I'm going to introduce our panels, and then I'm going to set some ground rules, because having sat in your place any number of times over my career, nothing is more annoying than a panel moderator who asks the softball questions. So we're going to channel the vice presidential debates tonight and make it, or this afternoon, make it a little bit more exciting. You guys have sat not in the order that I had the cheat sheets in. Cecile Bedor, who is immediately on my left, is the City of St. Paul's Director of Planning and Economic Development since June 2006. She also serves as the Executive Director of the city's Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Coolbroth is the founder and founder of CoCo, a co-working and collaborating space for entrepreneurs. A serial entrepreneur himself, he brings a vibrancy and excitement to the business community here in downtown St. Paul. Lenny Russo, who is dressed in his business casual, is the executive chef and proprietor of Heartland. And actually, Lenny, make sure I get the whole name. Heartland Restaurant and Farm Direct Market, nationally recognized restaurant. And I'm going to ask Lenny the tough questions about what he does when he has a customer come in who butchers Italian. And then finally, Tom Whaley is owner and executive vice president for business administration of the St. Paul Saints. He's a recovering attorney. I'd like to start off by saying, as a panelist, one of the things that I value is making sure that somebody cuts me off. So I'm going to give you my commitment that we're not going to have long-winded, exaggerated answers. We're going to ask the tough questions. These haven't been rehearsed, and if they were, I threw them out. So I'm going to start with Tom Whaley. Tom, earlier this year, the legislature offered you $972 million to locate the St. Paul Saints Stadium on the TCAP site up in Ramsey County. You turned them down and decided downtown St. Paul. Why?
My child-rearing years aren't over yet. No, I'm kidding. We wanted to be in St. Paul, was the bottom line, for a number of years. And especially in downtown. We've had a really great run of 20 years in St. Paul, out at Midway Stadium, a model private-public partnership with the city of St. Paul in terms of how that particular city park is run. But as an operator of a ball club, you want to be where the action's at. You want to be where there's vibrancy, where there's a lot going on, so that you can feed off it and hopefully contribute back to it. So it's really, for us, as much as it was about needing a new facility, it was about where we wanted it to be. In fact, I would say it's probably more about where we wanted to be than the place we were in. So.
Cecile, you had a choice of a urban ballpark in an industrial park up in Midway Stadium, or an urban regional ballpark in the heart of a vibrant, this is the tough question, vibrant, exciting downtown. What made you excited about a regional ballpark?
You know, I think actually just builds on the momentum of everything else that's been going on in downtown and across the city, without repeating what our two speakers have said. But we also get a twofer with moving this ballpark downtown, because we're going to recycle the land that's out at Midway with one of our other economic development partners, which is the St. Paul Port Authority. I think Lee Kruger is here today, and he is the new head of real estate development for the Port Authority. And they are a key partner for us in terms of bringing new jobs and recycling polluted land. So not only do we get the benefit of additional vibrancy downtown, but we get to create new jobs in another part of the city as well.
Kyle, you're an exciting entrepreneur. You're thinking, where am I going to locate? Where am I going to locate? I pick up the Star Tribune the other day. They're talking about office vacancy in St. Paul, really looking strong. There's no space in St. Paul. How could you possibly succeed here? What do you say to that?
St. Paul is a great place. I mean, when we founded CoCo, I look back to, I had the luxury of working here during the first .com. So I was right here in Mears Park area. And when I thought about where do we go, this was the natural place to go. It had fond memories, it's a great place. So, I mean, my answer is find a place.
Now I'm gonna challenge you, and we heard the mayor and Michael and Commissioner McDonough talk a little bit about why this is great. You just said it's a great place. I don't get it. Why is it a great place?
Well, we talked about the parks, right? The restaurants in town. It's a vibrant. It feels like home. It's kind of the way I describe it. It's a great place to be. It's a great place to work. It's accessible. There's just so many pieces that fit into what we have. Certainly the light rail for us was an important part, to have that as part of our demographic and our members that show up in our space.
Lenny, there's apparently, I've been told, and I've never actually visited it, but there's a western suburb to St. Paul, Miplis or something. You opened several years ago. You had an operation already in St. Paul. You have a nationally ranked restaurant featured in national magazines. You've been a James J. Beard Award nominee. Why downtown St. Paul?
Well, we did look at that other place in depth. We were looking to purchase a property, and we looked at about 65 different commercial properties. excuse me, before we decided to locate in Lower Town, the demographic was just much stronger for us in Lower Town. The burgeoning area, of course, you know, we were looking 10 years down the road. The light rail line very close by, block and a half from here to our restaurant. The farmer's market across the street, very important. The ballpark was a bonus for us. You know, we didn't see that on the horizon, so I look way smarter now than I did a couple of years ago. But really, you know, we're a farm to table restaurant, strong demographic. I'm very meticulous and very measured when I make a decision, particularly the massive investment that we made in that building. But really, there wasn't another choice once we got right down to brass tacks.
Cecile, I'm a developer. I'm representing a client who likes to work with the medical industry. You know, we all think medical device, and we think Medtronic, St. Jude, Boston Scientific, but I like to work with hospitals. If only there was at least is there only one hospital in downtown St. Paul? Do I have that right?
You know, we really didn't know what these questions would be. Sorry. Yes, we have a few. We have 5 downtown, and the city, I think the thing that is unique about St. Paul and why a developer would want to work in St. Paul is we work really hard to get to yes. We're a really accessible city physically. You know, if you look at downtown, you can walk from one end to the other. We have the Nice Rides program, which is really great for visitors to bike the river, but we're not getting as much use of those in downtown because you can walk it and you can see the whole thing. So in that way we're accessible, but the city government itself is very accessible, and that's really the direction of Mayor Coleman, and I'm not just saying that. But the mayor wants to make sure that people know the red carpet is rolled open. So we really want to help you do what you need to do to be successful. So on the hospitals, for example, we have provided conduit bond financing for the expansion of all 5 hospitals, and we just did another kind of bond issue for a hospital not in our city, but because they could work with us, because we're all about getting to yes. And I think that's something that sets us apart as well.
Just in case anybody missed that, how many hospitals, award-winning national hospitals, are located in downtown St. Paul?
There's United, Children's, St. Joe's, Gillette, and Regions.
Thank you, Cecile. Tom, you've got baseball coming in 2 years in regional Lower Town Park. What's it going to cost somebody in the audience to buy naming rights for that?
I don't know. Lenny and I are bartering a buffalo. We're going to do buffalo brats or something.
I think it's safe to say that if you need to talk to the mayor or Tom, the door's open there. Lenny, you're running this national award-winning restaurant here in downtown St. Paul. Boy, it must be difficult after dark. It's so quiet in downtown St. Paul.
Actually, we're really busy. I'm above projection in terms of revenue. Actually, well above projection in terms of revenue. And, you know, NPR calls me because I'm a blabbermouth, so they like to interview me a lot. They asked me if the light rail construction was impeding business. And, of course, I don't know, because it, you know, when we got there, it was already happening. And then they asked about XL tearing up the street and all the other construction. And I said, well, if it is, I'm not seeing it. But, you know, one thing I want to get, I don't even really want to answer your question, Matt. I'd like to get back to what Cecile said about being friendly.
It's like the presidential debate.
It is, yeah. I'm just going to answer the question I want to answer. One thing that was really important to us and remains important to us was the ease with which we were able to get the project done and the way we were able to fast track it. That was extremely important. When our group, our investment group, went in to meet with Cecile, she said, Lenny, how much money do you want from the city for this project? And I said, well, we don't want any money, which was barely music to her ears. But I said, what we really want is we want your assistance in making sure that when we put our plan out there and as we're going through the process of construction and renovating this historic property, that you assist us through the process of having our inspections done in a timely fashion, getting our certificate of occupancy in a timely fashion, knowing full well, having done this many times before, that the longer we're closed, the more money we bleed. And unless we have some revenue coming in a timely fashion, that could make or break our project. And I have to say that when we were talking about the western suburb, the difference is here in St. Paul, when you bring your project to a table and you sit down with each department, they're all there. There's like 12, 15 people around a table. Everybody's got a copy of your blueprints. They've got a copy of your business plan. And they ask questions, you give answers, they mark your plans up, they hand them back to you. You go back to whomever your general contractor is or your architect. You make the changes necessary, you bring them back, and it's that quick and that easy. And that is huge. And we closed our old location June 13th. We opened in our new location on July 22nd. And that is a very quick turn for a restaurant, as most people know. I have friends in that western suburb who, a year and a half down the road, they're still trying to get the door open. And that is really kind of the kiss of death in my business.
Kyle, this is a trick question, and it's an extra bonus point. So this is somewhat of again, in the presidential debate format. You're dealing with lots of young entrepreneurs. They want to come down. They like that entrepreneurial space in CoCo. They like the interaction. But it's 6 p.m. It's time to go out. How many bars or restaurants between the first 7 letters of the alphabet are within 6 blocks of CoCo?
Wow. There's a lot of great options. I mean, we can get out, and not only the bars, which is, actually, that is important for entrepreneurs, right? Access to food and drink. So even in the daytime, in addition to, the restaurants in the area, we have some of the food trucks now around Mears Park. We have all the great arts in the area. Those are all important aspects of what the entrepreneurs are looking for.
As the moderator, I think I'm prohibited from doing this, but I'll make exceptions for myself. I think one of the reasons we were voted best nonprofit to work is actually I've counted 11 bars and restaurants in the first 13 letters of the alphabet, 2 blocks or within 3-4 minutes of my office. So I think our young people certainly enjoy working in downtown St. Paul. I feel compelled, as guilty as I am, to actually ask a couple of the questions that I was given. So these are, and poor Cecile was working like crazy to prepare for these, and then I just decided to ignore all of them. I think it is fair to say, are the two cities different? We don't make a lot of it. They're not competitive. We're supportive of each other. But there are various differences that are important from a development perspective. Cecile, why is downtown St. Paul different than downtown Minneapolis?
Well, first of all, just for full disclosure, I live in South Minneapolis. So I think both cities are what make our region really great and help Michael do his job. Because somebody said to me, Minneapolis' best asset is St. Paul, our best asset is Minneapolis. We both have a lot to offer one another. But I think if you're looking again for something that is unique, if you look at the fabric of our buildings, it's historic. You have a very different experience walking through downtown than you do in other cities. It's compact, it's dense, and it's really accessible. You don't have large setbacks to buildings. You have sidewalk cafes where people can access easily. You can hop on the bus. I think walking between Mears Park and Rice Park give you 2 really different experiences, and they're wonderful experiences. And I think the types of events that we'll bring to downtown, again, for us saying yes, when you look at the diversity, the mayor mentioned the jazz festival, but if you look at the Flutog, Crashed Ice, the beer dabbler, I missed that one. And those are the kinds of events that other cities have said no to. And we say yes, because we want them to come into downtown. We want them to come into St. Paul because we're accessible and we want to be a place for everybody. And I think part of that goes to, again, when I think a lot of you have heard this, a lot of us went to Denver a couple weeks ago, and Denver theoretically is the #1 place to attract 18 to 35-year-olds, and we're looking at that data. But what are they really looking for? Compact, accessible, transit, bars and restaurants, and something with some character, and I think that's what St. Paul's got going for it.
So we're running a little bit behind, so I think what I'm going to do is I'll stop asking questions and ask if anybody in the audience has any questions. And I am going to ask if you wouldn't mind standing up. I know the sound in here isn't the best. And then for our panelists, we'll either direct it to somebody, or if you want to direct it to me, I'll find somebody, but we're going to repeat the question just to make sure that the taping of this gets on. So any questions from the audience? and I'm prepared to ask more. Okay, in the presidential debate, ma'am, you in the green. So, why do you like St. Paul so much? There were two parts to that question. Park Square Theater, wonderful urban theater here in the heart of downtown, but maybe some challenges, particularly across the street where there's a theater that's shuttered. Let's answer that question first. Cecile.
Well, they actually do have plans to add a 200-seat performance theater there, so there are plans for the renovation of that. So that's underway. Adding to, I think there's about 55,000 seats in the city of St. Paul, of theater seats. In terms of Macy's, I'm sorry I smiled because I've been getting that question probably 4 times a year since 2006. As far as we know, they don't have any plans to close. Their agreement that with the city of St. Paul expires at the end of this year. But Macy's is like any other retailer across the country. Some will be successful, some will not. We've been working, we work pretty regularly with Macy's. Macy's is part of our Wabasha coalition that's working to revitalize some of that commercial along Wabasha. They're very active in that. And I think they're doing what they need to do in order to be a successful business. But we've been given no indication that they're closing. We don't think they're going to close, and they're a real important part of downtown. It's actually the plans. Do you want to?
Okay, and the question was on Park Square or the theater across the street. Is it real or just kind of fantasy?
I'll exercise mayoral prerogative if I could. I think you're talking about the theater across the way, not the one that's empty that used to, as opposed to where Park Square is. Cecile's talking about the expansion of Park Square. We have been working with the owner of that building. You have a residential component and you have the theater component. Obviously, we have been in contact with nationally known folks that open theaters like that. Obviously, this last 5 years in the economy has not been, the most advantageous to having those conversations. But we really think if we can get that going, quite frankly, if we could get the Coney Island open again, which would be great. You really have a nice square there. You've got Artist Quarter, you've got Great Waters, you've got Meritage, which for my money is the best restaurant in the Twin Cities outside of Lenny's.
That was a close call, Mr. Mayor.
No, it's outside of Lenny's. It's the best. I got a huge group coming to Lenny's place down in a week. But the fact of the matter is, it's got the makings of, I think, a really nice district that will flow out from Rice Park, and that's where I think the importance of kind of the urban design and the connections between what you're doing in your parks versus how you're connecting it into the rest of the downtown are critically important. You have to create a seamless web from the Ordway through Rice Park, past Great Waters into the theaters and create that space, and I think that's where we understand the connections of those pieces, just as Lenny's connecting to the farmers market and would ultimately connect to the plaza outside the ballpark.
Thank you. Sir, did you have a question in the back? Okay, the question, what else is on the drawing board? And Cecile, otherwise everyone's going to be answered from you, so maybe we'll come back to you in just a second. Kyle, what's next for CoCo? What's in the future? What's going to be different in downtown St. Paul for entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I think we're just going to continue to grow. We've expanded greatly since we started 2.5 years ago. We intend to increase not only just additional membership, having individuals within the space, but also the activities that we do within the space. We just started this month, we started our design school, our design thinking classes, which is in collaboration with Stanford, and we're going to continue to bring that executive learning through to the city. And I think that's only the beginning. I see entrepreneurs looking for a home, a place of belonging, and we've got a great place here. We're going to expand square footage, but equally we're going to offer more and more on the education side too. I think Michael was talking about that. It's critical as we move forward. We need to enable the new mobile worker with more and more skills going forward.
Gotcha. Cecile, one more, we'll come to you in 1 second. Tom and Lenny, I'm at the regional ballpark 2 years from now. It's a hot, sunny day. I have an ice-cold summit. If only I could have some sort of a unique food to go with that. What's future-based? What's going to be there from across the street at Heartland?
Well, that depends where our imagination takes us. I kid Lenny about the free-range buffalo brat, but he'll do it. I mean, I say that to him and he's like, well, yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean,
We talked a little bit about that in the wild boar cheddar sausage. So,
I suggested something to him today. We could do like leg of wolf.
yeah,
I mean, that's I'm sorry, that's
happening.
bad taste. But
right.
it's timely.
It's happening.
timely.
Yeah, no, we're kind of, obviously we have a couple of years to figure this out and I'm actually fortunate enough to sit on the design committee of the ballpark as well. So, when I see Mike Veck now, I don't even say hello to him anymore. I just say Wiener concession. It's my greeting. How's it going, Wiener concession?
You should hear his response.
Right, how's business, Wiener concession? What's new, Wiener concession? That's it. So we're hoping that we can partner with the Saints in some way and bring a taste of real Minnesota product and of course with the St. Paul flavor to the ballpark. Actually inside the ballpark, and then we know that the ballpark is going to transform our neighborhood. That's the whole idea. So we're hoping that we'll be a big part of that and work closely with them in that regard.
I would just add to what Lenny said. When we started the quest, probably 4 or 5 years ago, one of the things it was Council Member Dave Thune suggested to us was he said, I think it's a good idea. But you guys need to go down into Lower Town and meet with the folks that are going to be your future neighbors. I want you to start with residents and work out with businesses. So the whole thing started very, very locally. That's what drove it. Ultimately, we ended up, with the help of the city of St. Paul and the state of Minnesota, we ended up at the state capitol. But this started, it was an incredibly localized effort. And that's really what got us. I believe that because we started there, that helped the project get over the hump. And ultimately, if we're going to be successful down there, it's for us anyway, as a small business, it's all about your neighbors. And so I would expect, as Lenny said, this is going to be something that's very organic and very, very St. Paul. We've got a lot of that out at the ballpark now, and I think the ballpark's going to give us some opportunities to go crazy with that and do a lot more. So that's something we're really thrilled about.
And I think, Matt, if I could, get back to that was a great question about the Macy's thing, I think. And I was fortunate enough to sit in on a meeting at the mayor's office a couple of years ago with the Macy's executives who gave us no indication at all that they planned to leave and reaffirm their commitment to us. And it's great to have them here, but I think, and we've talked about this amongst ourselves, I think that what St. Paul has to offer and what we would hope that it will have to offer in the future is not the same experience that you would get in a suburb. The Macy's is great, but if you live next to a shopping mall in the suburbs, you can go to Macy's. What St. Paul has to offer now are places like Jaime's Haberdashery, which is a gem. And I'm hoping that that's what we continue to see are these small, boutique, unique entrepreneurs that come in and offer a different sort of experience that you don't get in the suburbs. So if somebody is working downtown before they go home, it's those types of experiences that will keep you in downtown after 5 o'clock, and I think that's very important. Another thing that wasn't mentioned is this weekend is the 20th anniversary of the St. Paul Art Crawl. And that's amazing in and of itself, but that's all part of the fabric of St. Paul, the same way the farmers market is. And now with the help of the Saints, we're hoping that we can expand that experience and include the artists in that development, that new ballpark development.
Lenny, thank you. And so the question was, and if I may, I'm going to shorten it a little bit. There's a lot going on. How do we make sure it's part of a grander vision and that a new project doesn't detract from or diminish something else that we have going on so that they build on each other versus segregating each other? I have an answer to that, but Cecile, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I think the mayor has made it really clear that our number one economic development project in the city is Central Corridor. It's $1 billion investment. And we want to make sure that we take full advantage of that. So if you look at where the city's investments have gone, they are all along Central Corridor. So we have several projects that start from 280 going east, several projects that we participated in, several that we haven't, and several that are on the drawing board. From Jim Stolbestead is here, I believe. He did the Chittenden Eastman building, or is doing that, all the way down to Sears. If you come into downtown, the hospital work that's happened, the Penfield is on Central Corridor, the Lofts is on Central Corridor, this building obviously is, the Saints is. So you can see that there's a spine of redevelopment that's happening. And I think from that then too will spur, to answer the question what's next, is for example, there's a purchase agreement on the post office next door. All I can say is it's bought by somebody who buys buildings such as that, old historic post office, and renovates them and puts them back into service. And if you continue going in terms of what that opportunity is at the West Publishing site, the county will be out of there, I believe, at the end of April, hopefully. And we hope to be partners with the county in terms of really realizing a great development there. Again, it connects to the rest of the development that's happened through here. So those things were before our time. And we really are trying to make sure that things are connected and that there is some seamless development that's happening.
We're real close to wrapping up. Are there any other questions? I'm happy to... You have a question.
I have a question for Rich Packening. Is he still here? Is Rich still
Yep.
here? What's going on with the Pioneer Endicott and particularly the Minnesota Museum of American Art? And I think that's an exciting project.
Well, let's channel a panelist in the audience. This is one of those hidden plants. He's not wearing a microphone, so Karen, if you could, it's about one more row in. Rich Packening is a developer here in downtown St. Paul, is doing some pretty exciting things. Rich, perhaps you could restate the question and then give us an update.
I think the question was, what is the status of the Pioneer Endicott and what's happening with the Minnesota Museum of American Arts? I'd rather not comment on the status of the Minnesota Museum of American Arts because they're our tenants, and I'd rather let them speak for themselves, but they're hoping to have a preliminary opening, I think, this Friday for the art crawl. So I'd encourage anybody in this audience that's visiting the art crawl to visit the corner of 5th and Robert and take a look at what's going on in there and ask them what their plans are for that space. In terms of the Pioneer Endicott, we're under construction. It's a $40 million project, 234 Class A apartments being redeveloped into the old 130-year-old Pioneer Endicott building. The Endicott on 4th, 60 to 70 apartments. We hope to be complete by the end of this year, perhaps January, but somewhere in there. And we've got plans for 2 restaurants in the building, as well as a couple other small retail spaces, but it'll be a fantastic project. So.
Rich, thank you. I'm going to give our panelists a chance to comment as we wrap up here. And while I give them the question, and the question will be your best St. Paul story, and you have 20 seconds to tell it, why downtown St. Paul, why this city, why this opportunity? So I'll give you 30 seconds to think about that while I say, when we talk about 5 hospitals in downtown St. Paul, when we talk, as the mayor noted, about Central Corridor, Union Depot, Lofts at Farmers Market, the Penfield Project, the regional ballpark, here's a trivia question. What are the 2 highest average salary zip codes in the state of Minnesota? 55101 and 102 in downtown St. Paul. Hospitals, state government, the vibrancy, the excitement that we're building. There's a lot going on here. So now, lightning round. Tom, 20 seconds, go.
A fan of ours came up a year ago, not this summer, but the summer before, and said, you know, you guys are St. Paul's front porch. And that's, I think, the highest compliment we've been paid. It's a place for folks, whether you're a baseball fan or not, if you're just a fan of being outside and having a beer and being with your family. It's a great place to be and a great place to meet people. And we are St. Paul. When we go around the country, we don't have Minnesota on our jerseys. We go from El Paso, Texas, up to Quebec to play baseball games, and we've got St. Paul across the front of our shirts, and we're real proud of that.
I'm going to add to Tom's story. The Vietnamese ambassador to the United States was in town about 6-7 months ago, and we hosted a business roundtable at the chamber for him, and had many businesses in the state of Minnesota, but in particular the East Metro, that did business with the country of Vietnam. And at the end of the presentation, and we've all been there, you have a dignitary in your office, and you give he or she a wonderful picture book. Invariably, it's got a picture of a loon on it. We decided we were going to do something different. We gave him a St. Paul Saints jersey, because after all, he's a lefty. So there was supposed to be more humor to that. Lenny, 20 seconds.
Well, speaking of lefties, I guess I tell the story a lot, Matt, you're in it. I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce, met came to me last year and asked me if I would sit on the board. I said, Matt, you know my politics. He said, you're the only free market communist I know. Pay living wage and fair trade and are not in favor of a lot of regulation. I guess, you know, from my experience and again, going back to my meeting with Cecile when she said, do you want any money? And I said, no. She said, well, is it because you don't want to pay living wage? I said, I'm already doing that. And then she said, well, and we know our dishwashers make $13 an hour. And she said, well, what about, you know, you don't want to use union labor? No, I'm already doing that for the build out. So the important thing for me, I guess, is working really closely with city council, with the mayor's office, and that's been easy for us. And being able to work around in a common sense sort of way toward common goal, which is really the success of all of St. Paul, which is good for all of us. And so I'm really proud to be here.
Lenny, thank you. Kyle, lightning round, 20 seconds.
All right, this is a fun story. When we first opened our space, we were open for about a week and a half, and the backhoes came and started to remove the street to put the light rail in. Took our breath away. We chose the space wanting to be on light rail. It was intentional, but didn't realize the impact. And fast forward just a couple months, and St. Patrick's Day comes around, and suddenly there's a street. And we come in that morning, and it's festive. It's alive. You know, there's a festival happening, music playing, everybody's having a good time, and we knew we were in the right place.
Cal, thank you. Cecile, you've got 20 seconds, but I'll throw an extra 10 on because your boss is here, so 30 seconds.
Right, yeah. Well, he probably has many more stories than I, so, but I wrote this down. I had a meeting yesterday with Brian Fields from Fronshoe, who came in to talk about another issue, and I said, so how's St. Paul working for you, downtown St. Paul, what do you think? And I started writing because he just kept talking, and he said, I honestly don't believe we have been in a better position than we are today. Downtown St. Paul's development is more balanced than ever before. We have a great blend of not just office, but housing, transit, artist venues, retail, cultural entertainment, and sports venues, and green spaces that must not be overlooked. It's everything a vibrant downtown needs, a blend of all these uses, which for me was just so great to just ask a simple question. But the other thing was we recently welcomed Flagstone Foods, and the mayor was at the groundbreaking, and it's a new company. It's their new national headquarters is located here. And Kevin McKinnon is their chief operating officer. And he is about 6'2", pretty serious guy. And I said, so how's St. Paul going for you? And he was a kid in a candy store. He was practically doing this. It's fantastic. It's unbelievable. And he went on and on about looking out his window at the dance series that was going on in Rice Park, the restaurants, the bars. He has young people that he's recruiting, and he can't wait to go out and show them. And it's fantastic to have people who have just moved here and are discovering a city that they didn't know existed. And one last thing for me was the mayor mentioned the email that we both got that same email from a friend of ours. What I loved about that the most is the guests were from New York, LA, and I believe San Francisco. And their quote was, wow, St. Paul is like this European city. That's what it felt like to them. And to me, when you talk about what's unique and exciting is that people are discovering us. And it really is a result, I think, of many years of work and being really planful about who we want to be and what we want to look like, and we're really starting now to see the fruits of that labor.
Cecile, thank you. I'm going to turn this back over to Karen. Ladies and gentlemen, would you help me thank our panelists?
So I told you you'd be wowed. I hope this inspires you to live here, work here, play here, and invest here.